All right. What I'm about to say is probably going to be extremely controversial. If you're like a sensitive Nelly, you're just going to want to skip this video altogether. You can go ahead and hop off now. I really don't care if you hurt my reach. But I want to talk about, what's going on right now. Some of you may have seen this on the news with the Met Gala, with this of several people who were up on a projector, calling out Jeff Bezos for different stuff. Now, I'm not a Jeff Bezos supporter. I'm not a Jeff Bezos hater. I don't know the guy. Um, but what I want to talk about is that there was one of these videos that's going viral where this employee is talking about, that she doesn't have a livable wage, that she can't pay her rent with what she makes, in working for Amazon. And meanwhile, Jeff Bezos, a big billionaire and making all of this money, right? And this is a something that's very prevalent in American culture, right? Like I basically believe that as Americans, I was born here in this country. My parents came here from the Dominican Republic, but I was born here in this country, right? So I consider myself American. And I know from experience that Americans, we are some of the most entitled people in the world. We might be the most entitled people in the world, right? And I'm gonna tell you what I mean. Now, I'm not, I don't know the lady's personal situation. I don't know her the same way I don't know Jeff Bezos. What I'm talking about is not necessarily what she has experienced in Amazon, but it's this idea that when you have a job and that source of income is not enough for you to cover your cost of living, we always want to say, oh, I'm the victim of something because of this billionaire. This guy is super rich, and because of him, I'm in this situation. And that's the part that I really want to talk about, because when I say that as Americans, we're extremely entitled, I'm saying that, well, I'll put it this way, right? Now, talking about Jeff Bezos and Amazon, right? Here you have a guy who started a company. And again, this is just an example, it's just a figurehead of a bigger point. But here you have a guy that started a company, took on risk, took on debt, borrowed money for an idea which at its time hadn't even come. It's time for this idea hadn't even come. Like I used to go to Barnes and Nobles all the time. I used to go to Borders Cafe all the time. I love books. I love bookstores. I love libraries. And when Jeff Bezos started Amazon, he wasn't selling all the things that you can buy now. Like now you can buy absolutely anything on Amazon. But when he started Amazon, he was just selling books online. Now, again, depending on how old you are when when this happened, this idea at the time was not just revolutionary, but it seemed almost like a dumb idea because we were living in a time when the internet was extremely new. Most people were not willing to put their credit card information into the internet. And like I said, we had books, right? You can go to a bookstore, you can see the book, smell the book, read the first few pages, see if you even wanted it. So the idea of why would somebody order a book online and then wait for it to be delivered, it was not like a popular idea. No one at the time was saying, wow, that's such a great idea. I wish I had thought of it. But you fast forward decades later, when Amazon has become one of the biggest, richest companies in America, right? And globally for that matter, right? In fact, you can't walk down the street without seeing an Amazon truck, right? Like I was literally posting a reel about this earlier today at 7 a.m. And as soon as I finished recording the reel while I was walking to the gym, I at 7 a.m. I saw an Amazon person making a delivery, right? So here you have a guy who took on risks, took on debt, had a vision, created a company that now employs thousands of people, okay? And so you have an employee who works there and is stating that because of Jeff Bezos, they don't have a livable wage. And so this is the ideology that we have here in America, which I think is asinine and is full of entitlement. Okay, because here's the thing: many people do have jobs where the job may not pay them enough to cover their costs of living. I'm not denying that at all. But I'm going to tell you what one of my mentors taught me. This is what he taught me. He said, income follows assets, right? And for many, many people, the reason that they're struggling financially is not because their job doesn't pay them enough, it's because their job is their only asset, okay? And so again, I don't know this lady's particular situation, so maybe what I'm saying doesn't even apply to her, right? That being said, if your job is your only asset here in America, you might struggle to pay your bills, especially if you live in a major market, right? Like New York, California, San Francisco. Like if you live in a major market where cost of living is higher, you might struggle to pay your bills if you're relying on one source of income or one job. Okay. And so the thing is that the real issue here that I want to highlight is that unfortunately, many people do not know what the purpose of money is, right? Like I said, my mentor taught me income follows assets. So what does that mean? A lot of people work, right? And the money that they make, they think that the primary purpose of that money is to pay bills. Okay. Some people think that the primary purpose of their money is to pay bills on time so that they can have good credit, so that they can buy things that they can't afford to impress people that don't even like you. Okay. But something that wealthy people understand is that the primary purpose of money is to make you more money. Okay. And so I'll tell you the story of why I say that Americans are entitled. I'm American, right? I said my parents emigrated here from Dominican Republic, okay? And I remember the first time that my dad took me to Dominican Republic, I was 7 years old. I was a little spoiled American brat, and I didn't even know it at the time. But my parents are from a very, very, very poor part of Dominican Republic, an area where even to this day, there's no electricity, right? People have to have generators, okay? Um, there's no running water, there's no irrigation. Okay, my family's like up lives up on a hill. There's no running water, irrigation. You have to go to the river to get water to bathe, to cook, to drink, to wash your clothes, everything, right? To shower. And and I'm talking about today, 2026. I'm not talking about 1982, which is when my father took me there as a 7 year old. And I never forget this experience because it absolutely completely shifted my paradigm of what the real world is and why why I'm saying the things that I'm saying. So we go to my father's hometown and have all my little cousins, and I remember that we brought our own cereal, right? We bought our Kellogg's corn pops. That's what I used to like when I was a 7 year old. And so we brought corn pops, and I remember that we're sitting around at breakfast one morning with me and all my little cousins, and they serve us corn pops. Now I told you there's no electricity, there's no refrigeration, there's no running water. So like these kids had never seen cereal. They were so happy. They were so grateful, right, to have this American treat. And because we didn't have milk like we do here in America, we didn't have pasteurized, refrigerated milk that you purchase in the supermarket. What does my aunt do? She takes a bar of chocolate and she melts it with water, right? That's basically hot chocolate, right? And so she melts it with water, and that was the milk that they poured into our corn pops. And so we sit down, this group of kids around the table to eat. And my little cousins, right, they just start, munching away and like, oh my goodness, this is so good. And I remember that like it was yesterday. I take my first bite and I realize my taste buds realize, A, this milk is warm. B, it's chocolate. And my reaction was like, what is this shit, right? And my father got so pissed, right? But mind you, I still wasn't getting the more of the story. And I'm like, what is this? Where's the milk? And my father was like, oh, you want milk? No problem. I'll be right back. And here I think, oh, this is awesome. Dad is going to go get me milk. He's a hero. So he comes back with a fresh bowl of corn pops and milk in the bowl. It's white. I'm so excited, right? And I get ready to dive into my cornflakes, right, with my little 7 year old entitled self. And I take the first bite. This was worse than the chocolate. The milk was warm and it didn't taste like anything I ever experienced. And again, I spat it out and was like, what the heck is this, right? And my father looks at me, he goes, you said you wanted milk, right? I went outside, I milked the goat, now you have milk. That's what I grew up on. If it's good enough for me, it's good enough for you. And let me tell you something, like as 7 years old, we're not that bright, we're not that introspective, but it was a huge, huge aha moment. I realized I'm not in America anymore, right? I felt like that, like Dorothy, like you're not in Kansas anymore, right? And what's crazy was that all of my cousins were so excited for this corn pop, right? But here, my disposition, because I had the privilege of being born in, raised in America, I had the privilege of having electricity, hot running water, refrigeration, pasteurized milk. I grew up with that privilege that I had the nerve to scoff at something that for many people in the world is just a way of living. Okay. So I'm not making this video to defend or support billionaires or billion-dollar corporations or Jeff Bezos or anything like that. What I'm saying is that whenever you look at your situation in life and you think that it's the byproduct of what someone else is doing to you, when you look at your paycheck and rather than realizing, wow, because someone took risk and started a company, now I have a check. I didn't have to start a company. I don't have to have employees. I don't have to do any of that. I simply show up, do the job, answer the ad post, show up, get hired, do the job, and I can count on a check every single week. And the idea that we look at that as though someone is doing something to us, yeah, right. So again, this is not in support of billionaires, millionaires. All I'm saying is this. One thing that one of my mentors told me is like in life, you can either choose security or choose freedom, right? And the people that choose security often get neither. They get neither security or freedom, right? And we see that with all the job layoffs. Spirit Airlines just went out of business. 17,000 people lost their jobs. 17,000 people woke up one morning and realized, I don't have a job anymore. I don't have a paycheck anymore. Okay. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with jobs at all. Jobs are great. Jobs are honorable. We need jobs. We need entrepreneurs and business owners, and then we need people to actually do those jobs. That's what makes an economy. We're all dependent on each other. The point that I'm making is that when you go for security, you don't get security or freedom. Okay, we saw that during the pandemic, right, where people were basically told stay home for 2 weeks that turned into 2 years. Okay, but and this is what my mentor said, but if you choose freedom, you get both. If you choose freedom, you get both freedom and security. The issue with that is that it comes with risk. And most people are not willing to take that risk. It's very easy to point at someone else, to point at your job, to point at your employer and say, you're the reason that I'm not getting ahead. You're the reason that I can't pay my bills. You're the reason that I don't have a livable wage. It's much harder to be the person that has the idea, acts on the idea, and executes on the idea. So I hope you found value in this video. And thank you guys for watching. Peace.